All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope all of you guys had a great week so far. We're going to be hitting some of the play-in games from Wednesday night. My wife was out of town. We weren't actually going to cover the 9-10 games because I was going to focus all my energy on the series previews, but then the basketball was super entertaining. My wife was out of town, so I got to sit down and watch the games, and I have some thoughts. So we're going to talk about those 9-10 matchups on all four teams, just some quick thoughts, and then we're going to hit two of our series previews at the tail end of the show. Two massive favorites, the Boston Celtics over the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers over the Brooklyn Nets. Not going to go as in-depth in those series because I expect both of them to be over quickly, but I do have some thoughts, and I want to focus on, particularly with Boston and Philly, things that I'll be looking for them as bellwethers for potential long playoff runs in the coming months. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements or any footage breakdowns that I do. And last but not least, if for whatever reason you guys miss one of these videos and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish, don't forget you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. All right, let's talk some basketball. So I want to start with that Thunder-Pelicans game at the end of the night last night. An incredibly impressive performance from the Thunder, obviously going on the road to beat a good Pelicans team in a do-or-die game, but I think it's a little bit more impressive than people realize, and I think it's a great indication of a team mold that is going to lead to extended success for the Thunder in the coming season. So, for the record, the Pelicans were 6th in defense this season, including 4th in defense post-trade deadline. And the Thunder hung a 128.1 offensive rating on them. And again, this is in a super physical single-game elimination type of format. Just compare that to some of the other play-in games that we watched over the course of the last couple of nights. I thought the story of the game, and it's a lesson to learn, something that I've talked about a lot on the show over the course of the last couple of years, is this concept of aggregate ball handling and shooting. So, again, we focus a lot on the stars and what their skill set is, but in the NBA playoffs, in many cases, teams are going to sell the farm to try to stop your star. And so it becomes less about the ball handling and shooting that your star possesses and more about the ball handling and shooting that the other four guys possess. This has been a big thing with the Warriors over the years. More so with the Warriors' ball handling because the vacancies are around the rim. But like their ability to quickly execute 4-on-3s is the difference maker for them on many nights. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander started getting trapped on pick and rolls in the second half of this game when he got hot. Started kind of cold, red hot in the third quarter. They start trapping him on pick and rolls. And they just placed Josh Giddey as the screener so that he could make that first read. And as you look down the lineup, it's Shai, who is like on his way to being just a bona fide two-way superstar. Got a huge steal on Brandon Ingram towards the end of this game too. Made basically what amounted to the game winner. I've sung Shai's praises all season long. He's one of my favorite players, a throwback type of vintage three-level scoring guard who commits to the defensive end of the floor, is incredibly effective at the end of basketball games and in playoff games. Absolutely love that kid. But it's the total ball handling and shooting of the lineup that makes it work. Obviously, Josh Giddey, I saw someone compare him saying he's a taller Austin Reeves. I don't quite see that because in a good way towards Josh. I think Josh has another level above that he can get to because of like his actual strength. And I think he's actually an even better playmaker than Austin is at this point in his career. He had a big time game last night, had a big bucket or a big offensive rebound put back where he got fouled at the end of the game to make a couple of free throws. Finished with, I can't remember exactly what the total was, but it was high 20s and a near triple-double. Jalen Williams had kind of a rough night from a scoring standpoint, but he made a couple of big plays at the end of the game, driving to the basket and attacking closeouts. Lou Dort was red hot from three, but he brings that incredibly physical defensive presence, gave Brandon Ingram some issues earlier in the game, and got the key stop of the game late when Brandon Ingram tried to ISO him. And then even Jalen Williams, the center, and they were leaving him wide open from three, and he missed a bunch, but he made a big one towards the end. But like he even is confident putting the ball on the floor. There was a play, just a ridiculous play towards the end of this game where he caught on the left wing and drove towards the middle towards the end of the shot clock and went with like a legit vintage skyhook that he put in the game. Again, single elimination format, fourth quarter, super close game, not having a good shooting night, and he went to a skyhook and made it when it was needed. And I just imagine plugging Chet Holmgren into that spot as just a better version of Jalen Williams, and then all the potential on the bench in the coming years. They're just an incredibly exciting team. That Minnesota game is going to be tough. Minnesota's a lot bigger and more physical than them, not just under the basket, but also on the perimeter with guys like Kyle Anderson and Taurean Prince and Anthony Edwards. That's going to be a really tough game to win. I'm not going to say they can't, but I expect Minnesota to win. They're just a little bit older, a little bit more physical, a little bit more, a few more advantages that they can go to. I also think Anthony Edwards, if he can stay out of foul trouble and focus him in an on-ball role like Shea, I think he can have some success there. But we're going to be talking a lot about the Oklahoma City Thunder in the coming years on this show. They are an incredibly interesting and exciting team. The Pelicans. I thought this is a great example of why the different types of defensive archetypes are important. You know, they have a lot of length and athleticism. When you look at guys like, you know, Brandon Ingram and Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, I mean, we're talking three guys that are 6'8" or taller, super long arms that can fly around defensively, right? You know, Jonas Valanciunas is a decent rim protector when you can keep him by the rim. And CJ's not great, but he's out there. And you look at that and you go, hey, like 3 6'8" rangy wings, they should theoretically be able to get a ton of stops. But I think people too often focus on the 3-and-D wing archetype without accounting for the fact that there are a bunch of different defensive archetypes that are necessary. Like, for instance, the Clippers. They have lots of 3-and-D archetypes, but they lacked point-of-attack defense and rim protection, so they can struggle in some postseason environments, right? Like, you need guys who can guard quick guards, not just chasing them over the top of ball screens, but contain them just off the dribble. You need guys that can lock and trail on shooters. Yeah, you also need wing defenders. Where wing defenders are most valuable is in rotation because they just have these super long strides and super long arms. It's their ability to close out on shooters and make multiple rotations while covering more ground than most people. That's where their real value is. You need to have them on the floor, and especially for bigger matchups, right? Like, you know, having a big forward that can guard another team's big scoring forward is valuable. But so many guards in this NBA are running these offenses and are getting dribble penetration. Look at how valuable Josh Richardson was last night, just because he was able to make things a little bit more difficult for Shea. Look at how valuable Lou Dort was. Lou Dort is not a traditional big, lanky wing. No, he's built like a fridge. He's a little bit more undersized, but in that environment, being more physically strong and handsy and disrupting someone's base has just as much value as contesting them up top, if not more value in situations like this. I talk about it all the time, but pull-up jump shooting is all about lift. So once a guy gets to his legs, if he can get the necessary lift, it doesn't really matter what's happening up top as long as he gets to his lift. So if you can disrupt someone's base at the point of attack with a smaller player, a stronger player, you can have more success. Look at how valuable Dennis Schroeder was for the Lakers in their play-in game on Anthony Edwards, just ball pressuring the hell out of him all game long. There are different defensive archetypes. You need rim protection, you need wing athleticism, and you need guys that have lower centers of gravity that can contain on the perimeter. And the Pelicans just do not have that. Not in a way, not in a two-way context that allows them to get stops. There's a lot of talk about Zion last night, and we're going to talk about him here in a minute. But they scored just fine. They had like a 122 offensive rating in that game. Scoring was not the issue. They could not get stops. When the Thunder spaced them out and drove and kicked them to death, they could never contain the basketball. With Shea, they did not have a real weapon that they could put on Shea for 36 minutes without having to send double teams to him. So they were playing 4-on-3 the entire game. So I think they need to look at roster balance, especially on the defensive end of the floor this summer. And then with the Zion thing, I mean, both Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum went after him in the post-game presser. I mean, look, he's got to have a wake up. It's time. It's time to wake up. Like, if he does not take his physical health seriously, he will be flaming out of this league in no time. It's just the reality. With his play style, he can't do it when he's overweight. And his muscles just can't fire the way they need to without succumbing to the wear and tear that takes place. I don't think he would have made much of a difference last night because of the defensive issues that they were having. But offensively, he brings two things that are very important that the Pelicans can struggle with sometimes. Real legitimate rim pressure, because CJ and BI love to pull up before they get to the rim, right? And just that little extra bit of playmaking. Brandon Ingram, I think, is a lot better as a playmaker than people will give him credit for. But Zion definitely can help them offensively. But it goes both ways. Getting in shape helps him stay on the court, but it also is the thing that's going to allow him to be a better defensive player when they need him to be. The Bulls had a big comeback win over the Toronto Raptors. They held the Raptors to just 47 points in the second half. Zach LaVine was incredible. Alex Caruso was talking after the game a little bit about his winning impact. I am a huge Caruso fan ever since I was covering him on the Los Angeles Lakers. I hope you Bulls fans have grown to appreciate him the way that I did. Just a bona fide playoff weapon. He started Game 6 of the NBA Finals in 2020 and was amazing. He's big and strong. He's 6'6", legit built strong, great athlete, can guard multiple positions, is a good connective piece offensively, just a really good playoff player, really smart signing from the Bulls. I actually think they have a really good chance to go beat Miami. They present a couple of specific matchup issues for them, and Miami's not playing good basketball right now, but I'll be rooting for Miami because I think Miami would give Milwaukee a better fight. I don't think Chicago has what it takes to hang with the Bucks in any capacity. Toronto, it's time, just like it is with the Pelicans, to balance out that length and athleticism. But for them, it's more with offensive skill because they've got, Fred VanVleet is a good point of attack defender, and OG Anunoby has a low center of gravity and is a good point of attack defender. That's not necessarily their issue. They need to start to supplement this with real ball handling and shooting. 18 missed free throws in that game. That's unheard of. Shooting 50% from the line on 36 attempts. That's insane. 16 turnovers. There's redundancies at the forward position that have caused them to have that. Look at the Thunder. The Thunder are doing it right. They're targeting these bigger athletes so that they have some switchability, but they're targeting guys that don't necessarily have the same athletic ceiling as guys like OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam do, but have way more offensive skill. And so they can spread you out and drive and kick you to death. And they're never going to succumb to poor free throw shooting or an inability to make teams pay for helping. They've got so much aggregate skill on the floor. I would look, and we're going to talk more about all these teams this summer, but I would look to flip either Siakam or Anunoby for someone like Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard. They need to get in those sweepstakes, and they need to get really serious about adding offensive firepower. All right, really quickly before we get out of here, I'm going to do quick hitters on Hawks-Celtics. Hawks-Celtics and Nets-76ers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these series because I expect them to be over quickly. The issue specifically, I'm going out of town on Saturday morning, and I'm going to be arriving at our destination in Canada at 11:30 p.m. So we're still covering the playoffs, but I'm losing my entire day Saturday, and it's actually going to bleed into Sunday morning. We're going to do a quick instant reaction on Saturday night, and then we're going to do a much more in-depth reaction on Sunday morning after I get some sleep. But we don't know the 1-8 matchups until tomorrow evening. I'm going to have a really short video that I'll release tomorrow, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time diving into these 1-8 matchups or the Celtics-Sixers series just because they're just such big favorites. The Celtics are a minus 1,200 favorite. And the Sixers are a minus 1,000 favorite, 10-1 odds. So I'm not going to spend a half hour breaking down those particular series, but I'll give you some quick notes. So on the Hawks-Sixers, the Celtics are a gigantic favorite. Like I said, minus 1,200. They swept the season series. In March, they had a game in Atlanta. They played more recently than that, but everyone rested. In March, they played in Atlanta. I watched that game this morning, the entire thing. Oh, my God, it was an eyesore. There was no defense from either team out the gates. Finally, in the second half, Boston started switching everything and started locking in defensively, and they immediately generated some separation and pulled away. But there are a couple of specific things. Atlanta did have some success on the offensive glass. Trae Young had a lot of success getting to his spots. They guarded Jaylen Brown with DeJounte Murray, and they guarded Jayson Tatum with DeAndre Hunter. I do think that that's a specific set of matchups that they'll have to tinker with a little bit. I'm picking the Celtics to win the series in 5 games. They're just better on both ends of the floor by a mile, and they're athletic enough, I think, when they really lock in to survive Atlanta's offensive rebound attack. However, that's step one to an Atlanta upset. Guys like John Collins, Clint Capella, and Onyeka Okongwu have to absolutely destroy them on the offensive glass. Obviously, Trae Young and DeJounte Murray need to have a massive series. I would consider going away from John Collins early in the series and playing Saddiq Bey heavily for two reasons. One, I think that is a better matchup for Jaylen Brown and putting Saddiq Bey and DeAndre Hunter on the two Boston Celtics wings. You free up DeJounte Murray to save his legs for the offensive end of the floor, although those Boston guards are always looking to attack too, but it's a little bit more of a straightforward matchup. And then also with the amount of switching that Boston will do, closeout attacking is going to be vitally important. Like Trae Young and DeJounte Murray just getting a little bit of dribble penetration and kicking, and then having guys like Saddiq Bey extend the advantage, having guys like DeAndre Hunter extend the advantage. Atlanta did not have good spacing in the game that I watched earlier today. That is something they've gotten a lot better at over the course of the end of the season. So I think they might have a little bit more success there. But it's just from a talent perspective, they're just overmatched in this series, especially once you go past the starting lineup. For the Celtics, things that I'll be watching is their defense as sharp as it was last year in the postseason. They came in locked in defensively against Brooklyn. They need to defend at that level to win the title. I'll be watching that very closely. Secondly, are they going to make good rim decisions? Clint Capella runs a drop coverage for the Hawks. He's going to be around the rim probably most of the series unless they go small with Al Horford. And even then, they'll probably concede those shots to try to keep Capella at the rim and try to rotate around him. And it's going to be vitally important, not just for this series, but as a process thing as they go forward into the rest of the postseason, for Boston to look to drive and kick and not necessarily challenge Capella at the rim all series long, which is typically what causes them to miss layups and give up transition opportunities. So rim decisions I'm going to be watching, and is their defense as sharp as it was to start last year in the postseason. Nets-Sixers. The Sixers are minus 1,000 favorite. They swept the season series 4-0, including 2-0 after the trades. They had a close win in Brooklyn, and then they beat the hell out of them a different time. I'm picking the Sixers to sweep this series. The Nets are 23rd in defense or in offense post-trades. To be expected, guys like Mikal Bridges are, they can put up numbers, they can score efficiently, but they don't attack the rim enough or play make enough to be like a really well-rounded offensive engine. And then Spencer Dinwiddie has a ceiling to what he can do, especially as series get more physical. He really struggled last year in the postseason, especially finishing around the rim. So it's not a big surprise that their offense has fallen off. But here's the big thing. They loaded up on wings, and this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier with New Orleans and with Toronto. But they loaded up on wings, and they can't guard. They are 17th in defense post-deadline, and that goes back to what I was talking about balancing point-of-attack defense with length and athleticism on the wing. They have no hope of guarding Joel Embiid. I think Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson are going to struggle to generate quality shots. And they don't have much of a home court advantage. It's like I've only picked two sweeps in the first round, and it's the Clippers and the Nets. And it's because you generally would say in 5, but you usually get that big upset win in Game 3 or Game 4 because of a raucous home crowd and a high-energy environment. The Clippers and the Nets probably have the two worst home court advantages of any serious basketball teams in the NBA, except for maybe the Miami Heat. But even the Miami Heat, they show up late to the game, but they'll get invested in a real way once they finally make their way to their seats, whenever that actually happens. The other thing too, Nick Claxton is just going to allow Joel Embiid to hang out at the rim. The biggest susceptibility in the Philly defense is if you can get Embiid on the perimeter, he's not good at containing driving, like slashing. Toronto had a lot of success slashing by him last year. And with Nick Claxton out there, I just don't think that's going to be an option. Here's the path to victory for the Nets, the very slim path to victory. They need to double the hell out of Joel Embiid and tighten up their rotations over the course of the series. They need to leave James Harden on an island and turn him into a scorer. They need to get back in transition to make sure Tyrese Maxey doesn't get those easy runouts. And they need to completely ignore PJ Tucker and pray to God that he misses every shot that he takes out of the corner. On offense, just spread them out. Spread them out as much as you can. Take advantage of their weak perimeter defense by driving and kicking them to death. You can have there are spacing concepts within 4 out, 1 in. You put you do the best you can to keep guys like Dorian Finney-Smith in one corner as an easy outlet at any given moment, And, maybe you go high on offensive skill and play Cam Johnson and Spencer Dinwiddie because of a little bit of undersized Philly backcourt that doesn't play a lot of defense and doesn't do a ton of dirty work. And you put Mikal Bridges in the other corner. Yeah, you're going to have to navigate Embiid around the rim, but you put Claxton in a position where he can catch and dunk really quick. He's also an excellent offensive rebounder. And you just overload on offensive skill and take advantage of Philly's lack of perimeter defense. But it's extremely unlikely. Things I'll be watching from Philly. How engaged is James Harden in the physicality of the playoffs on both ends of the floor? Like, is he ready for a damn war? Because this is going to be a war. Not necessarily this series, but next series is going to be a damn war against the Boston Celtics. And Boston is going to do everything they can to make him feel uncomfortable. And if he just tries to do the James Harden thing where he kind of floats his way through the games, they're going to lose pretty quick. So I'm really going to be watching James Harden and his overall competitive energy. How well does Joel Embiid handle double teams? I think this is going to be a good sample of it against the Nets, and I think you're going to see it a lot against the Sixers. Joel Embiid against the Celtics. Joel Embiid destroyed the Celtics the last time they played when they left him in single coverage, and then they started doubling him at the end of the game, and he made some good reads to PJ Tucker. I think it'll be very important for him to demonstrate a capable handling of double teams in order to win a championship. And last but not least, Philly's weakness in their defense is perimeter defense. So I just want to look at guys like Tyrese Maxey and James Harden, and just I just want to see how locked in they are in their ability to contain the basketball. Because especially against Boston, when the matchups work out, you're going to see DeAnthony Melton guarding one of Tatum or Brown, right? You're going to see Tobias Harris and PJ Tucker guard one of Tatum or Brown. A lot of DeAnthony Melton too when they go to when they put PJ Tucker on the bench. But like Derek White's going to be out there, Marcus Smart's going to be out there, Malcolm Brogdon's going to be out there, and guys like Tyrese Maxey and James Harden are going to have to slide their feet. And in that particular game, Derek White and the one I mentioned where Joel Embiid went off, Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon did a lot of damage to them. So it's something I'll be keeping an eye on. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. We'll have one last video before the playoffs late tomorrow night, just a quick little breakdown of the 1-8 matchups. That video will be like 10, 15 minutes. I'm not going to invest a ton of energy in massive favorite playoff series like that. But, guys, right around the corner, 2 days, we are going to be in the grind, and I'm very, very excited. I thought the play-in tournament was super entertaining, a nice little teaser for what we're getting into. Tons of you guys supported the show over the course of this week, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I've been looking at some of our year-over-year growth from February to March and April, and it's been really, really cool to see this show grow, and I have you guys to thank for that. So thank you guys for supporting me and the rest of the team. And, hey, let's have some fun over the next couple of months.